pre-planned for you to come in and talk to us. We extend invitations to all our lawmakers, including Republicans. So let's talk about guns now, but we're gonna table the issues that divide everybody over here. I just want to ask you procedurally, are there things going on right now in the Senate or in Congress to talk about guns and gun safety? Because the polls show that most Americans want something done. So if we could limit it to those topics right now.
So certainly the House has acted and sent a bill over to the Senate. It's called H.R. 8. The biggest focus is the issue of background checks. Here in Oregon, we have a thorough background check system, but each state realizes that it isn't very effective unless we have a national system. So there's other ideas under consideration. There's lots of conversations between Democrats and Republicans. But as of this moment, no bill or amendment gets to the floor except through Mitch McConnell, who is our majority leader of the Senate, and he shows no indication of allowing there to be a debate on guns in this Senate.
Okay, thank you.
Of course, the other big topic is the impeachment inquiry that's happening. It's hard to keep up. Is there one thing that happened today on top of mind that we should know about right now?
Well, today there was testimony, private testimony, to the House committee that involved a special envoy to Ukraine. While we may not know what was said, certainly the conversations are now underway. The other kind of significant factor is that this morning President Trump said, by the way, China should start investigating President Biden and his son. And so this whole idea of using the power of the bully pulpit or the resources of the United States to encourage a foreign country to intervene in our elections is completely anathema. It's completely unacceptable in American tradition. And so it's certainly something that will continue to be explored as part of the impeachment inquiry.
And real quick, can we tell how this may play out in an already divided America?
We really don't know how it will play out because if we go back to the Watergate hearing, the mood of America changed as witnesses came before the committee and as they thoroughly investigated piece after piece. And the party of the president at that time, the Republican Party, started moving as they became more familiar with the details. And so at this moment I see many of my colleagues saying this, my Republican colleagues saying, this doesn't really make any sense. After all, the president can have any conversation he wants. But as the details emerge, we might well see folks starting to say, well, this looks like an abuse of the presidency. It depends on the material that comes before the public, before the committee.
This Joe Biden and his son, what he did or didn't do in Ukraine, has a lot of people frustrated, confused. I was listening to the head of an anti-corruption organization in Ukraine say she doesn't see anything that is criminal what the Bidens did, but she thinks it's unethical. What are Americans and Oregonians and people in Washington State supposed to think about all that?
Well, they should realize, first of all, this is a distraction from the core issue of the president's behavior in the Oval Office, using the military aid of the United States to persuade a foreign country to investigate a political foe. I noticed that every time this topic comes up with the Bidens, it said, thorough investigation has shown that he did nothing wrong, and then goes on from there. I think that to some level, Americans are uncomfortable with the notion that relatives of a president have, if you will, kind of special access because of that connection. We've seen it with virtually every presidency, including the current presidency, with the Trump family benefiting in a host of ways that may make us uncomfortable. But that should not allow us to be distracted from the question of what the President of the United States is doing in using his office or the resources of the United States of America to persuade foreign countries to attack or investigate or besmirch a political opponent in the United States.
Senator, thank you very much. And we just want to note that we've invited Republican colleagues in Congress to also come on set. We'd love to have them. Thank you very much for your perspective.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure
As
to be
we
with
said,
you
we had a
all.
lot